What's happening, Bills Mafia? Ryan Thomas here, live on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast for another Buffalo Bills post-game show episode. Folks, you're watching this live right now on my personal Facebook page, Ryan Thomas. You're watching it on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast Facebook page, and you'll be able to find it live and watching it live and finding it after the fact on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast YouTube channel. This episode will also be available on the Apple Podcast station, on the Spotify station, and on Google Podcasts. As always, I like to remind you guys to fire away some comments for me to read at the end of the show, which I'll be reading. For those of you that tune into this on the audio side of things, you will hear me react to some of the comments that are posted by some of the viewers and the listeners of the show. I've greatly enjoyed the last, 3 months since the football season has really started, and I've created this format for the show for you guys to tune into. This morning, I had CJ DeSimone of the Weapons Hot podcast on the show, and we dove into this game. It was a pregame show, Bills-Jets. I picked CJ's brain in regards to our AFC East foe, New York Jets. Had a lot of viewers on the show, had a lot of people commenting on the show, and I greatly appreciate the love and support that I've received from Bills Mafia the last 4 or 5 years. Thank you so much to Bills Mafia. Thank you so much to the Facebook groups out there that have continued to support this show and have continued to tune in. So fire your comments away. Let me know what you think of this game as I let you guys know what I think of this game. It was a very interesting game, to say the least. It was a weird win, one of the weirdest wins, I think, in recent Buffalo Bills history. But hey, a win is a win. That is the most positive thing that I can say about this game, is that it was a win. But as always, I like to dive into what I call the nitty-gritty of a Buffalo Bills win. What set this win apart? What made this win an interesting one? And as much as I am excited that the Bills are 5-2, there's plenty of room to improve upon. Plenty of areas to improve upon. So here we are, the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, Bills versus Jets, Week 7 post-game show. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. I'm Ryan Thomas. As always, diving into each and every Buffalo Bills game after the fact. The Buffalo Bills, in this one, defeat the New York Jets by a score of 18-10. How did they get 18 points? How did that happen? Well, Tyler Bass was responsible for all 18 points. All 18 points that Buffalo scored in this game were off of the right foot of Tyler Bass. 6 for 8 in field goals. As I said, responsible for all 18 of Buffalo's points. I'm on Twitter at Ryan Thomas Takeover. For those of you that Ryan Thomas Take, I should say. For those of you that want to follow me, I'll be giving you my takeover player of the game in this show, as always, as well. Be giving you a hot take during this show as well. But Tyler Bass misses the first field goal attempt. Tyler Bass missed 2 field goals in this game. And after the first field goal miss, I'm saying to myself, the Bills got to find a better alternative than Tyler Bass as their kicker, because Tyler Bass is just simply not good enough to date. Well, little did I know he'd be responsible for every single point that this offense was able to put up in this game. It was a very pitiful performance, shall I say, from our offense to rely on our kicker that heavily. I'll start off by saying that the offense was not up to snuff in this one. Where is this potent, high-paced, high-powered Bills offense from week 1 to week 4? What happened to this offense from week 1 to week 4? I don't know. I don't know what happened to this offense beyond week 4. Something happened. Something went down. Something is not the same. Something is different. I don't know what that is. I'm going to speculate on what that is throughout this show, but speculation is key to a podcast, but at the same time, I don't know if we have a clear-cut answer yet, and I don't know if we will until we start to see that offense get back to its success. Did the offense put Tyler Bass in the position to attempt 8 field goals? Yes, they did, but is that what wins games in this football league, in the National Football League? Only against the New York Jets are you going to get away with that. And when I gauge the Buffalo Bills and as far as what I think they can be and who I think they can be in this AFC, this is not the performance that I want to see from my Buffalo Bills. And much to David Reed's point, field goals aren't going to cut it. We struggled in the red zone, and we need a red zone threat suited up in Duke Williams. Why didn't we see Duke Williams out there today? David Reed says. Well, I'm not really on the whole Duke Williams train in this instance. I'm talking about just this game. Who was out there? Who wasn't out there? It's a great point, David, and I appreciate the comment. But as far as this offense, I have a few gripes with the offense, and it's not the guys on the field, it's the guys off the field. And we'll get to that. So just bear with me as I make my way through. The positive of this game, the main positive of this game, outside of the fact that the rookie Tyler Bass got a warm leg and was able to drill 6 field goals for us, the positive is the takeover player of the game, Cole Beasley. 11 catches for 112 yards. Cole Beasley was really the only guy on this Bills offense that was able to get open and stay open throughout this entire game. And that's what we needed. That's what Josh Allen needed. He needed a receiver that he could rely on. But what a weird win this was by the Bills. I can't state it enough. The first half, they looked extremely sluggish in this one. The first half, they looked like they couldn't find a rhythm. The first half, Devin Singletary at halftime had only 4 carries. 4 carries in this game at halftime. The Bills then were able to run the ball a little bit better with Zach Moss, which is something that I think we will see more of. If the Bills could establish a run game with a 1-2 punch in Zach Moss and Devin Singletary from here on out, it would take that much more pressure off of Josh Allen. 40-some pass attempts for Allen in this game. 30 completions. The stat line for Allen, 30 of 43, 307 yards. Obviously, no touchdowns, no interceptions, but Allen, the leading rusher in this game with 11 rush attempts for 61 yards, averaging 5.5 yards per carry. I hate seeing that. I'm one of those Bills fans that I don't want to see Josh Allen lead this team in rushing. It honestly makes me uncomfortable seeing him run at that high of a rate. Makes me feel uncomfortable. I don't really like it. I talked about that with Sal Capaccio on Twitter, that if the Bills brought in Stephon Diggs, the Bills brought in John Brown, the Bills bring in Cole Beasley, who was my takeover player in this game, we don't want to see Josh Allen lead this team in rushing. We don't want to see that. You don't bring in all those wide receivers. You don't bring in all those weapons for Allen to throw to, only for Allen to be the team's leading rusher in a game. And that's happened multiple times this season. Off the top of my head, I think 2-3 times. You don't want to see that. I don't want to see that. You don't want to see that. None of us want to see that as Bills fans, because that means Josh Allen is putting himself in a position to get hurt. And it's a position that he shouldn't be in general. We know Josh Allen's capable of putting the team in a successful position and in a perfect spot on the offensive side of the ball via the passing game, I should say. But we only saw glimpses of the Allen through weeks 1 through 4 today. Glimpses. We didn't see it consistently today. And what I mean by that is the simple fact that Josh Allen needs to go back to his strengths as a passer. Oftentimes throughout this 3-week stretch, I have noticed Josh Allen has force-fed Stephon Diggs. He's forced the football into double coverage. He's forced making that play. And rather than doing what he told Jim Kelly he would do, he's doing the exact opposite. You go back to a feature that was on WGRZ Channel 2 News. Good friend of the show, good friend of mine, Adam Bonini, the sports director at WGRZ. Great buddy of mine. Adam Bonini and Vic Carucci did a feature on Josh Allen, and Jim Kelly was a part of that feature. It was a Back to the Future type feature with Jim Kelly, greatest quarterback that this franchise has ever had, and Josh Allen, a guy that we all have faith in Josh Allen. He is Buffalo's favorite son right now. Josh Allen told Jim Kelly that he would listen to his greatest critique of Josh Allen's game. Jim Kelly checks the tape, and says, you got to stop throwing for touchdowns and start throwing for first downs. Allen was on 3rd and 3 today. He threw a ball into single coverage. When you have a single coverage matchup, you take advantage of it. But when you're at 3rd and 3, and when you are as athletic as Allen, that's a situation where Josh Allen should run the ball. But Josh Allen chucked it into the end zone. It was an incomplete pass, and Buffalo had to give the ball back to the Jets. I can't remember if the Bills punted on that drive or if they kicked a field goal that Bass missed. There were so many moments in today's game that Buffalo had an ample opportunity to make the most of it, continue the drive, move the ball more efficiently, and Josh Allen left a lot of guys open in this game in particular. Go back to a moment where the Bills are heading towards the right side of the field, and Josh Allen drops back, looks to the left once, then looks to the right, stays on the right side of the field, and had he looked back at the left side of the field, he had a wide open receiver to throw the football to, and it would have been maybe a 30, 40, 50-yard gain. Who's to say it couldn't have been a touchdown? You never know. You never know what would have happened on that play, but that's the point. Josh Allen can't make mistakes like that. We can't see moments from Josh Allen like that. He has to survey the field better. And I think with Josh Allen's success from weeks 1 to 4, the one dynamic of Allen that I noticed most often was that he was able to mix the football around. He was able to pepper it into Gabe Davis. He was able to pepper it into Cole Beasley. He was able to get the ball to Stephon Diggs. The key player in this offense that is banged up, that was out in this game, was John Brown. And I know that John Brown is a guy that Josh Allen relies on. And I don't want to use that as an excuse that John Brown was out. We shouldn't use it as an excuse. This team has enough weapons on the offensive side of the ball to make something happen. When one guy's out, another guy has to step up. It's a next man up league. Josh Allen has to do a better job at getting the ball to each one of his playmakers. No Dawson Knox in this one. Dawson Knox tested positive for COVID. But in terms of Allen in his progression, I think the stat line shows he had a great day. He threw for over 300 yards. He was 30 of 43, but no touchdowns, no interceptions, and really a game where he put the offense in the position to put up points. But if you're playing a Kansas City Chiefs, if you're playing a Tennessee Titans, if you're playing a Pittsburgh Steelers, if you're playing even the Cleveland Browns, and you're trading going field goal for field goal, the New York Jets are the only team that you could successfully do this against. I'm talking about the future of this franchise, getting into that upper echelon of the AFC. And I think right now, the one thing I can rest my head on is that I do think the Bills will win the AFC East. I've said that since before the season started. I do think they will win the AFC East. I think they have more than enough capability to do that, especially with the New England Patriots getting trounced right now by the San Francisco 49ers. The Jets are a bad team. Miami, now they are an intriguing team. Brian Flores has been able to galvanize rally the troops, galvanize the roster, and make that team better, make that team hungry. And I never thought that we would be here 7 weeks into the season saying that the Bills and the Dolphins are the two best teams in the AFC East, but I think that might actually be the case after this week. But Allen needs to get back to his strengths. Settle him in. And this goes to Brian Daboll's situational play calls. It's no secret. I've had a love one week, not love Brian Daboll the next week relationship with Brian Daboll. And it goes to situational play calling only. I fully acknowledge that Brian Daboll has done a hell of a job in terms of developing Josh Allen. Josh Allen was looked at as the raw quarterback of the 2018 NFL rookie draft class. quarterback draft class that year, he was looked at as raw. He was looked at as needing to be refined. He needed a lot of work. He needed mechanics tweaked. He needed a year to sit, people said. I thought the opposite. I thought the only way Josh Allen is going to get better is if he's out there, especially playing over guys like Nate Peterman and A.J. McCarron. There was no reason to believe that Josh Allen shouldn't have been playing. If you were at the training camp at St. John Fisher, like I was in 2018, watching this Bills offense, you would say to yourself, Josh Allen was arguably the best player out on the field for the Bills on that offense with that offensive unit. And, you know, Dable has done a phenomenal job at putting Allen in positions to succeed. But moments where this offense has had 3rd and 1s, 2nd and 2s, 3rd and 3s, understanding the situation, the down and the distance. 3rd and 1, they run a fake quarterback draw where Allen fakes the handoff. He runs up the middle, and he doesn't get even a half an inch. I'm scratching my head at that. Sometimes this offensive play calling is far too thought out, overthought, where let's just keep it simple. Let's just stick to the basics. 3rd and 1, let's punch it in with Zach Moss. 3rd and 1, let's quarterback sneak it, if anything. Not this quarterback fake delay up the middle. That was one of those moments where it's like, this is just so overthought by Brian Dable in this situational play call or play calls within this game. And Greg Williams was beating Brian Dable for the majority of this game up until, the Bills were able to get the ball back, decent field position, put Tyler Bass in position to kick yet another field goal. And I don't know about you guys today, but it was a little nerve-wracking watching this Bills offense kind of sputter and then Tyler Bass being relied upon to kick a field goal when, I don't know about you guys, but I'm not as confident in Tyler Bass as most. This is a great step forward for Tyler Bass as a rookie kicker to make 6 of 8 field goals, but we don't want to see that. We know that this team is better than that. This team is better than that. This team is supposed to be better than that. And to play down to the level of your opponent, the way that the Bills have in 2020, each and every week they found a way to do that and that alone, play down to the level of their opponent. And I know this was a win, and I'm thankful that they're 5-2, but to me, there were few positives in this game. One of the positives in this game, I will say, was Jerry Hughes. He had a great game today, especially late in the game. It seemed like Jerry Hughes got a little bit of a second wind in this one. As the game wore on, Jerry Hughes got better, tried to be the spark to this defense. And this defense, Sam Darnold at one point was 10 of 11 in this game, was dinking and dunking it all over this defense with a very, very limited supporting cast. And you don't want to see that. What happened to the Sean McDermott defense? I don't know. Tremaine Edmonds, once again, there were moments in this game where Edmonds was behind on a play, missed a tackle, didn't plug the gap, didn't fill the gap on a run play, attacked the blocker rather than the runner. I don't know what direction the Bills need to go in as far as, making this right, because Sean McDermott has said, we're going to go back to the drawing board. We're going to go back to the drawing board. And it seems like these dynamics within this Buffalo Bills defense have not gotten better. And I know they held the Jets to 10 points today. They outscored the Jets 18-10. They did enough to win, but we believe, right? I don't know about you guys. I believe that this Bills team could be one of the best teams in the AFC. I think they have all the potential in the world to do that. So when the Bills play down to the level of their opponent in the New York Jets, and they allow the Jets to somewhat come back into these games, it's like, it's so demoralizing for me because it lets me know that this Bills team is just not where I think they should be. And to me, this was a game. You're playing the New York Jets. You come off of 2 straight losses to the Tennessee Titans and the Kansas City Chiefs, 2 teams in the AFC that we can all say, those two teams are tough. Those two teams are nasty. Those two teams are solid teams in the AFC. Pittsburgh as well. I think Cleveland is getting better. Obviously, they're 5-2. They won late against Cincinnati in a great game. But Buffalo has just kind of sputtered. And dare I say it, they haven't looked fully inspired in moments of these games. And we'll get to the comments. So Kevin Andrew Johnston says, "Hey Ryan, how about those Bills 5-2? I thought the defense played okay. I think the defense, obviously they only allowed 10 points, so I'm not saying like the defense was terrible, but the defense started off kind of slow. The defense started off kind of slow. The offense, especially, extremely slow. And the fact that the Bills can't seem to develop a run game or establish a run game here through week 7 is concerning. Zach Moss was 7 carries for 47 yards. He averaged 6.7 yards. He was a guy that made some plays in this one. But to Devin Singletary's 8 carries for 29 yards, a 3.6 yard per carry average, maybe Zach Moss will be elevated to that number 1 running back spot for the Buffalo Bills. And enough, for the love of Pete, enough of these Isaiah McKenzie jet sweeps. Enough of it. I'm so over that. I am at the end of my rope with that. Isaiah McKenzie, 1 carry for minus 11 yards. I'm at the end of my rope with witnessing Isaiah McKenzie on these sweeps, on these runs. Sam Darnold was picked off twice in this one as well, and the guy that deserves the spotlight shed on him a little bit in terms of a positive performance is none other than Buffalo Bills rookie corner Dane Jackson out of Pitt. I really like Dane Jackson out of Pitt, and I really liked him as a value pick for the Buffalo Bills in the 2020 draft. Looked at corner as a solid need for the Bills actually in that draft, and it took the Bills a little bit too long, in my opinion, to take a corner in that draft. But Buffalo to get a guy in the 7th round that could make an impact, that was big today. He played really well. He showed up, and he got an interception today. And largely what is considered as his true first NFL game where he was playing a pivotal role within our defense, on our defense within this game. Dane Jackson deserves a lot of credit for what he was able to muster up in this game. And, for a team that has been banged up on the defensive side of the ball, I think that this was their best performance, obviously, in recent weeks. But even in saying that, there are moments where this defense was extremely sluggish. I mean, Darnold had a horrible day statistically, especially in the second half, putrid in the second half, being 10 of 11 in the first half, finishing the game with a completion of with 12 completions and 23 pass attempts, 2 interceptions. Early on in the game, former Buffalo Bill Frank Gore looked as if he was going to run all over us. And up front, this Buffalo Bills defensive line, we know that there are some areas of need there. We know that they're a little thin in terms of the depth. Losing a guy like Jordan Phillips, he leaves for the Bills and goes to the Arizona Cardinals. He gets more money. Losing Shaq Lawson, he leaves the Buffalo Bills, goes to the Miami Dolphins. He gets a little bit more money. Losing a guy like Star Latuile, due to the fact that he opted out, COVID reasons, obviously, you had the opportunity to do that. Every player did have that opt-out capability within this 2020 season. I do not criticize Star Latuile's decision at all. He's a family man. I actually know the guy that lives right near him, a work friend of mine that lives right near him. He's got a beautiful family. I don't, discredit that decision at all. But in terms of what it means to the Bills football-wise, the X's and O's, losing Star, I think, was one of the biggest losses on this defense this season, heading into this season. And you lose that guy. Granted, he's an extremely role-oriented defensive lineman due to the fact that he is a run-stuffing defensive linemen, but look at where Buffalo has had trouble these last few weeks stopping the run. And the Jets wanted to make things happen. They wanted to make a big play, but early on, they did a far better job at establishing a run game in comparison to the Buffalo Bills. And they're working with, 37, 38-year-old Frank Gore and rookie running back LaMichael Pirine, who had an 11-carry day, 39 yards, and a rushing touchdown. The receiving core of the Jets is brutal. Denzel Mims being the main bright spot. And this gets to my next point in this game. A controversial moment, I think, in this game was the hit on Brashad Perriman. The Micah Hyde hit on Brashad Perriman. I thought that hit was clean. I thought that hit was one of the nicest hits I've seen in recent NFL history, where Micah Hyde lowers his shoulder. The first contact from the hit from Hyde to Brashad Perriman was at the chest of Brashad Perriman. Was not at his head. I think Brashad Perriman got the wind knocked out of him initially, and then his head hit the turf. Not a shoulder-to-head blow from Micah Hyde to Brashad Perriman. I thought that was a great hit, a clean hit, and I really hope that Micah Hyde doesn't get any sort of suspension for it. I don't know if he will. I don't think he will. But he was taken out of the game, and I thought that was ridiculous. It's bad enough that these quarterbacks can't even be touched, let alone that was a massive play made by Micah Hyde in an extremely important moment within the game. Jets are down. They're trying to drive it down the field. The Bills leave a guy open. Micah Hyde comes from across the field and makes the tackle to prevent Brashad Perriman from making that catch and the Jets converting on that play. He did his job. People are saying, dirty hit, dirty hit. Watch the replay. Micah Hyde came over the middle of the field to the right sideline, and the first contact between Hyde and Perriman was the shoulder of Hyde and the chest of Perriman. What happened after that was not Micah Hyde's fault. The momentum that was created off of that hit and how that momentum ended was not Micah Hyde's fault. It's football. I am so sick of this safety first National Football League. I really am. I understand it from a concussion perspective and a helmet-to-helmet perspective. That was not a helmet-to-helmet hit. Micah Hyde turned into Brashad Perriman. He didn't headhunt. So that's my take on that. And I thought it was one of the biggest plays from this Bills defense last season or this season. And we've seen hits like that last season. We've seen hits like that throughout this league. I saw a hit during the Bucs-Raiders game, very similar to the Micah Hyde hit, no flag. So, I think that these refs pick and choose when to throw a flag on hits like that. I think these refs have different definitions of what a helmet-to-helmet hit truly is, or what a dirty or personal foul hit is in this league. Clayton Garrett says, did the same thing versus the New York Giants last year, no flag. That's what I said. Third down, nonetheless. And they throw that flag. That was terrible. That was disgusting. I thought that was unreal. Luis Ernesto Pacheco, hopefully I said his name right. I think John Brown would have made a difference. And John Brown is such a pivotal part of this offense, and he does not get the credit that he deserves, right? Coming in last season, going into the season last year, I'm watching the Bills training camp, and it was one of the hottest days of the summer. I'm sweating bullets out there, and I'm just rocking my Bills polo and my khaki shorts. And I'm thinking these guys got to be exhausted. And Sean McDermott was putting them through one of the more grueling training camp practices that they had. They had a practice at 10 a.m. to noon, and then they had a practice, I believe, at 2 that day. My memory serves me right. And something like that. There was like an hour-long break in between both practices. It was a 2-a-day practice. And John Brown was knifing through this Buffalo Bills defense. And that was when he was listed essentially as that number one guy for the Buffalo Bills. They didn't have Stephon Diggs, obviously. So, that was a receiver that I noticed right out of the gate as far as a receiver that had true chemistry with Josh Allen, and a guy that Allen has gravitated to in the locker room and outside the locker room, off the field. So having a guy like that healthy and ready, willing, and able to play and compete is extremely important for this offense. There's no doubt about that, but I don't want to use that as an excuse. I want to look at things as face value, and I'm not saying that you guys are using that as an excuse. I'm just saying, me personally, I don't want to use the fact that we had injuries, in this game as an excuse. But I agree with you. I do think he makes a massive difference to this offense. Jimmy Primo, we're answering some comments now on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Jimmy Primo says, personally, that's an awesome picture, by the way. Personally, I feel Daboll's red zone play calling was bad today. 0 for 5 in the red zone. Can't put that entirely on the personnel that was on the field. What are your thoughts? I agree with you 100%, Jimmy. I agree with you 100%. And I think the praise that is on Brian Daboll has to be tweaked a little bit. I think we can praise Brian Daboll for the fact that he has developed Josh Allen. He deserves a lot of credit for that. Sean McDermott, we know it. He's a defensive-minded coach. He has an experienced defensive coordinator and an experienced defensive mind in Leslie Frazier running this defense. I'm going to get to him in a little bit too. But Daboll's situational play calling has always been a problem for me, has always provided me with head-scratching moments. I will up the ante when talking about this as well. Okay. When the Bills decide to finally run the football, they're running the football, the formations themselves, it is painfully obvious to me watching it from on the broadcast that the Bills are running the football. If it's obvious to me that the Bills are running the football within those formations, it's going to be obvious to a veteran defensive mind like Greg Williams. Love him or hate him, Greg Williams was winning a lot of those battles today. It was up to Adam Gase's offense to take advantage of the fact that the Jets were holding the Buffalo Bills to field goal after field goal after field goal attempt after field goal attempt, 8 field goal attempts. That is a failure on the part of Brian Daboll and a failure on the part of this offense to not convert in the red zone. And the personnel as well, not putting your personnel in a position to succeed. Forcing Josh Allen to run the ball 11 times. I'm not a fan of that. I've never been a fan of that. I'm a fan of Allen running the ball when needed. I'm not a fan of design runs. I'm not a fan of Allen leading this team in rushing for a game. No, that's not what I want. Not when you bring in a guy like Stephon Diggs, not when you bring in a guy like Cole Beasley, and not when you bring in a guy like John Brown. And I didn't even touch the run game in bringing up this point. Zach Moss was one of the most productive backs in his conference. Devin Singletary was an extremely productive back in his conference as well. Utah, Florida Atlantic, both of these guys are more than capable of sharing a workload and producing in the National Football League. Anyone that tries to tell me different can only say thus far they haven't shown it. That's the only rebuttal that I think people can have, because thus far Zach Moss has sparingly played, and Devin Singletary has had some okay games and he's had some not so great games. But the situations that they decide to run the ball are the most obvious of rushing situations that's not good for Devin Singletary. That's not allowing Devin Singletary to make the most of his touches. So that's my answer, my thoughts in regards to Jimmy Primo's question. Michael Trask says, do you think we need to pump the brakes on a division championship? No, I don't, Michael. I think that to be quite honest, it's pretty safe. It's a safe bet to go to the casino and bet that the Bills will win the AFC East. I think they will win the AFC East. I've said that since the start of the season, and I hold that take pretty tight. Hold on to that take pretty tight. You go through the AFC East right now, you look at the Patriots. I think that Bill Belichick made a really big mistake letting go of Tom Brady. They let him go. I mean, you don't see Tom Brady playing on another team if the Patriots wanted him there. Robert Kraft wanted him. Bill Belichick, he was saying, hey, if he wants to go to another team and play that whole free agency period out, good luck to him. If Belichick actually wanted Brady there, he would have let it be known, and Brady might have stayed. Because why would he part ways with Bill Belichick outside of the fact that, he wanted to maybe try something new? But Bill Belichick put that idea in his head due to the fact, in my opinion, he didn't show enough interest in keeping Brady. So Brady leaves. He goes to Tampa Bay, which is the perfect destination for him. They're reaping the rewards of that. They're about to be 5-2, last I checked at least. And he's got all these weapons, obviously, that we all know about. He brings Rob Gronkowski out of retirement because Rob didn't want to play last year. He was not in the right mental headspace. Football was taking too much out of him, and Bill Belichick was demanding too much of him during this really rough period in terms of his physical ability or lack of physical ability due to the injuries that he had suffered. I have a very, very, very good source that says that Rob Gronkowski needed a mental break and was completely worn down. It was only a matter of time that he came back, but he wasn't coming back to New England. And when Tom Brady decided that he was going to continue to play and Tampa showed their interest, it was only a matter of time before he was able to pry Gronk out of retirement. But, I look at the Patriots. Cam Newton is a rare talent in this league. There are a few quarterbacks that can really impact the game and take over a game the way Cam Newton can. Is he the player that he was in 2015? I don't think so, but can he be a guy that is tough to game plan for still? Of course. But Tom Brady was the type of quarterback for the Patriots where he would rally the guys around him to rally himself. Cam Newton makes a play. He uses that play to rally himself and rallies himself with the hope that it rallies the guys around him. I don't see Cam Newton as that vocal leader that Tom Brady was on the sideline or in the locker room. I see him as not necessarily a me guy, but he motivates himself to motivate others. Whereas Tom Brady motivates others to motivate himself. Massive difference there. And then the Miami Dolphins, Brian Flores made a lot of great decisions to add to that defense in Miami. I loved their offseason, to be quite honest. I was a little bit skeptical of the Tua move. I feel like Herbert's the better quarterback, and I think that rings true as of now. I think that take is a pretty solid on the money one as of now. But Tua is an interesting player. He's a dynamic quarterback. I thought the change from Fitz to Tua now was a little bit sudden and a little bit sooner than what I thought. But Fitz knew that this was going to happen at some point. Sooner, unfortunately for him, rather than later is when it happened. In Miami, they got some talent on that offense. Myles Gaskin has been a more than adequate running back for that team, and the defense has looked pretty short up. So I just think that, the AFC East is in a state of transition. It'll be a few years before the Jets are a worthy contender, but I think that this is Buffalo's division to lose. So all in all, Michael, to answer your question, I think that, we can continue to hold out the belief that the Bills will be the 2020 AFC's champions, winning the AFC's for the first time since 1995. I was 3 years old. Mike. So something's got to give, right? Time is now. Michael Gervais, thank you so much for tuning in, Michael. I've seen your name pop up in these comment sections throughout the last few shows. Greatly appreciate it. Michael Gervais, a great supporter of the show. He's saying, hoping Feliciano is back for that line next week. We need that dog mentality back. What you think? Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. Feliciano is a locker room guy that everybody really seems to like, and was someone last year that played a much, I would say, my expectations for Feliciano were good, but he played a much greater role on that team last year than what I had thought he would. I'm not saying that I thought Feliciano wasn't that great. I'd like to think that Feliciano was going to be good, but he ended up being pretty great for this offensive line. And in particular, a guy that gets along with him really well is Josh Allen. And, Josh Allen needs as many guys around him as possible that he is comfortable with. And John Feliciano is one of those guys. He also brings that edge to the line. He brings that edge to the team, I think, too, to the offensive side of the ball, especially. So the fact that we haven't had him all year, there are some guys on this line that I think have filled in really nicely. Brian Winters, I feel, has had his moments, ups and downs. Cody Ford, he wasn't out there today. Ike Boker was there today. Hopefully I didn't mispronounce that one, but I think I pronounced that one right. If I didn't, correct me. But, Ford, I just don't know what he is. I don't know if he's a tackle or if he's a guard. I still don't know. And the fact that I still don't know if that's good. I don't know if that's bad. Maybe he just needs more time, more reps. I don't know. But there have been moments where they just can't seem to run block. And there's moments where it's a quick pass design play where Allen's got to get the ball out of his hand quickly, and he can't because as soon as the ball is snapped into his hand, he's got people in his face. And, I think this offensive line this year has been average, whereas last year I thought they were very good. And maybe the factor into that is the fact that John Feliciano wasn't out there. So Bob Minkiewicz, he's at the stadium. He's rocking his Bills hat. You sound like me for every game. See, I don't want to sound negative. I really don't. This was a great, ultimately a great victory. The fact that they were able to pull off this 18-10 victory against the New York Jets, sweeping the Jets this season. I'm not shocked that they swept the Jets in the slightest. But at the same time, the Bills are better than this. I truly believe that. I still hold out the belief that the Bills can be one of the three best teams in the American Football Conference. The Chiefs, the Ravens, the Bills. That's how I saw this AFC East or AFC panning out, and I saw the Bills winning the AFC East with relative ease. I think they can win the AFC East with relative ease. I feel like New England has gotten off to an extremely rough start. Their defense isn't there. They lost way too many players due to COVID. But, opting out because of COVID. And Cam Newton, I just don't know if he's their guy. Michael says, I absolutely think Feliciano helps pump that O-line up. Can't put a price on that, in my opinion, anyways. You can't. That is what I think a lot of these teams are missing, is that pump-up feeling. I watch a lot of football, not just Bills football. I watch a lot of football. I watch the 4:00 game afterwards. I watch as much of it as I can. I'm watching the Sunday night game tonight. I'm watching the Monday night game tomorrow, the Thursday night game, and then it's on repeat, right? And each week we all do that, I think. Anyone that's watching these shows that I record, you guys are avid football fans as well. But first, you're obviously Bills fans, and then you're avid football fans after that. Bills first, football second, right? But you see a lot of uninspired football out there due to the fact that there are very limited amount of fans or no fans at all. And I was worried about that heading into this season. I was hoping that wouldn't play a major factor in the Bills' sluggish starts and moments in games. But it has. Michael Trask has an awesome comment. I'm going to get to that in just a second, but thank you guys for tuning into the show today. This was an awesome show. Letting you guys know this is available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you guys like to listen to this show and you've enjoyed the show, I've had so many people reach out to me over the last 2-3 months saying, hey man, your show is doing great. I'm really enjoying it. New viewers and new listeners reaching out to me and saying, continue to do what you're doing, man. I can't tell you guys how much I appreciate that. I really can't. This is a massive hobby of mine, but it's a massive passion of mine as well. And I greatly enjoy discussing the game of football. I love playing it, coaching it, It's an addictive game to anyone that has tapped into it on both sides, playing, coaching. It is such an addictive game to discuss and to analyze and to prepare for. So let's see here. Michael Trask says, do you think Josh Allen is playing hurt? He is playing hurt. He's got that shoulder wrap around his shoulder there, his left shoulder, if my memory serves me right, which he injured in that Las Vegas game in Vegas playing against the Raiders. And, ever since that Raiders game, he hasn't looked too good. I don't think that's a coincidence either. And, I don't want to use injuries as an excuse. I don't want to come off as if I'm defending some of the moments where Josh Allen didn't look that great. But I have noticed that Allen has had a propensity to throw it over the right side of the field rather than the left side of the field. A lot of the great plays that he's made have been towards the right side of the field. They haven't seen many towards the left, and throwing it from the right hash to the left I have seen, but throwing it from the left hash to the left side of the field I haven't. And I think that next gen charts, I should say, we'll put out a throwing chart of Josh Allen these last 3 weeks. We will see that Allen has not thrown the ball over the left side of the field as often as he did week 1 to week 4. And I think the reason for that is, even if it's your left shoulder and you're trying to throw it from the right, he's right-handed, he's trying to throw it from the right, he's still got to move that left shoulder to point that left shoulder to put it in the position of where he wants that throw to be. Anyone that played catch with their dad as a kid, whether they were playing football catch or, even playing baseball, drilling how to field a ground ball, you got to point that shoulder first and throw, whether it's baseball or a football. And more so with football, I'd say. But in terms of a quarterback, Allen's pointing that left shoulder, and then he's torquing that throw to get that torque motion to let that ball loose. And I think he's having some issues throwing that ball to the left side of the field. And I think maybe that's why we saw the reluctance that we saw in that moment. I can't remember the down. I can't remember the distance of the situation. But Allen had, I believe it was Devin Singletary on the left sideline, wide open. He was covered originally, so he didn't throw it to him. He looked to the right. The coverage went to the right. If he would have went back to the left side of the field, he would have found the open target. He didn't. It can't happen. It can't happen. We did see a couple moments where Allen threw the ball a little too high or too low. I thought there were fewer and further away than what they were last week, few and far between, I should say, than what they were last week. But we have to remember, too, Allen is in his 3rd season as a starter, and I think year 4, year 5 will be the years that Josh Allen really comes into his own, and from year 5 to like year 13, he will be one of the 4 or 5 best quarterbacks in the National Football League. And I'll go off of the guys that I think will also join that short list. Pat Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert is fantastic. Lamar has the ability to make things happen. Kyler Murray has the ability to be an electrifying quarterback in this league. Deshaun Watson, Josh Allen. I think that those guys are going to be around for a long time in this league, barring injury, of course. So, Allen in year 4, year 5, I think that's when he's really going to come into his own. Year 3, you are adjusting to a new offense as far as the weapons go. You are adjusting to a newish running game with Zach Moss. And as the season wears on, I do expect this Bills offense to right the ship again and to get back to doing what they were doing weeks 1 to week 4. But the opponents on the rest of the schedule are difficult. This is going to be a difficult stretch here coming up, and the Bills have to make the most of it. Great win, 5-2, heading into a awesome matchup against the New England Patriots. As always, those games are always tough in their own way. Bill Belichick is such a genius as far as preparing his team and putting his players in the right position, especially on defense. But the Niners are really ripping them apart. I want to go through the game scores for the scores around the league and give you my take on some of the scores. Cam Newton was benched in this game after his 3rd interception. The Patriots say that he will remain the starter of the New England Patriots. And Tom Brady showed out today, we'll talk about that. Let's go to, obviously, the Giants. They got beat by 1 point due to Danny Jones, his trip, and the drop that was seen there on that Thursday night game, 22-21. The NFC East is such a joke. If the season ended today, the Philadelphia Eagles would host a playoff game at 2-4-1. It's unbelievable to think that. The Kansas City Chiefs really ripped things open in a game against the Denver Broncos, 43-16, the final score in that one. Pat Mahomes did find Tyreek Hill for a beautiful touchdown late in that game. The San Francisco 49ers trounced the New England Patriots by a score of 33-6. The Los Angeles Chargers and Justin Herbert continue to just really show up. 39-29, a win for the Chargers over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Tom Brady, the freight train offense that is in Tampa Bay now, 45-20. Hate to say this, but I think the Tampa Bay Bucks might be my favorite in the NFC thus far this season. Detroit Lions win on the final play of the game. Matt Stafford throws a touchdown pass to TJ Hawkinson for a 1-point victory, 23-22. Cleveland Browns with a 3-point victory over the Cincinnati Bengals. What a beautiful throw from Baker Mayfield. I give Baker Mayfield a hard time a lot of the time. Peoples-Jones, wide receiver, beautiful catch in the corner of the end zone. I didn't know if his 2 feet were down. Upon further review, they were. And the Browns win 5-2. That's another team in the AFC that the Bills have to look out for maybe come playoff time. Green Bay bounces back with the victory over the Houston Texans, 35-20. Not too shocked by that one, but Devontae Adams, 196 receiving yards on the day. Aaron Rodgers has looked like Aaron Rodgers all season with 4 touchdown passes in today's action. And Drew Brees, the New Orleans Saints, win over the Carolina Panthers 27-24. The Washington football team knocks Andy Dalton out of the game for the Dallas Cowboys, and they win that one behind Kyle Allen by a score of 25-3. So that is the scores from around the league, and I'm really, truly feeling like this next week here is going to be a very interesting game because Cam Newton had a pitiful performance against the 49ers. He will remain the starter heading into Week 8 in this Week 8 matchup. And let's chip into Cam Newton a little bit. Let's get Cam Newton rattled. Let's do that. Let's see that Bills defense that can rattle a quarterback. That's what I'm hoping for. But thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. I'm going to wrap this up. I'm Ryan Thomas. That was the Thomas Take Sports Podcast Bills post-game show as the Bills moved to 5-2 with an 18-10 victory over the AFC East foe New York Jets. And please feel free to tune in to the Thomas Take on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts. Find it here on the Thomas Take Facebook page as well. My YouTube channel. Subscribe. I put out interesting content throughout the week beyond the Buffalo Bills football games, as well as mixed martial arts, baseball. Game 5 of the World Series is going on right now. See if we have a score for that. I'll read that off on the show for you guys as well. What a series that has been for the Tampa Bay Rays and the LA Dodgers. That game actually hadn't started yet. It starts at 8:08. So I don't have a score for you guys, but I guess that's what's going to be on the TV momentarily. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Go Bills, stay safe, and vote. Vote. Not to get political here, but I hope everybody's voting in this election. Be safe about it. You know, I'm not filling out an absentee. I'm leery of the absentee. I'm going to the polls, and I'm putting in my vote for the 2020 presidential election. Maybe I spoiled who I'm voting for. I'm Ryan Thomas. That was the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Stay safe and go Bills.